Hey again, everyone, and welcome back to the channel for the next installment in our weekly news recap show. So, welcome back. It's been a while. It's been a bit. Again, not because I didn't want to do these, but I just things have been kind of slow a little bit, or at least that's the way it felt. Maybe until this week, where Hot Toys, of course, Hot Toys definitely picked things up. We do have to talk about. Am I going to talk about Jazz Inc? Obviously, they've been making a lot of waves in the community for multiple reasons. I'm sure at this point, if you're familiar with this collecting community, you've seen the Batmobile stories, the Catwoman. So I might table that until they actually release the Catwoman for pre-order on the 30th. But it's been pretty slow, right? I think we've gotten Hot Toys has been releasing, a couple of new announcements. They haven't even released that many figures. We are going to talk about some, so I kind of let the stories accumulate. But again, that's the only reason I haven't done the show in a little bit. It just didn't feel like there was a lot going on, at least at the time. But there's enough now that I think we could definitely go over it. Hopefully, this won't go too long because there is a lot that I want to touch on, but we'll see. But the first thing that I kind of wanted to touch on in terms of that status of the six scale world right now game. Um, Listen, I've been getting a ton of figures. If you've even if you don't watch the videos that I put up, right? If you even just scan through the videos that I've posted, it's been like nonstop release after release. But these are older ones, right? Hot Toys released a lot of these figures, like the Groot, the Mantis is coming next week, the Mark 6 with the gantry also hopefully next week. So a lot of the figures that you're seeing me getting are figures that Hot Toys has already released, and we're just waiting, or at least I've been waiting. As somebody who buys from Sideshow, for them to ship it. So it's not so much that I'm getting a ton of new figures. I am, but it's more that they're trickling in slowly from Sideshow. But the reason I want to bring up this, what's going on is, look, starting right around September, right? The start of September or end of August, things slowed down pretty dramatically, especially with Hot Toys. Hot Toys had been killing us with announcement after announcement after announcement. Uh, if you're a Star Wars collector, I am both a little envious of you, just because you got a ton of announcements from Hot Toys and a ton of pre-orders, and at the same time, I'm very sympathetic because the amount of figures that you got, um, if you're trying to keep up with these, is just insanity, right? So it's kind of a little of this, a lot of that, which is definitely a positive to get all these figures and all the selection. But if you're a Star Wars fan that likes to be a Star Wars completist, that was tough, right? So uh, going into August, at the end of August, when things slowed down a little bit, I can almost understand why Hot Toys would pull back a little bit. At some point, you're starting to cannibalize your own um, consumer, and those people, the collectors like us that buy figures from them, at some point we just can't keep up. So it made sense to me that Hot Toys kind of pull back a little bit. But then you look at what's going on as well, and look, I'm somebody that's usually pretty hyped about third party. Not that I'm hyping up the quality of the figures or saying they're on par with some of these other licenses. But they've just released some interesting characters and interesting figures that we wouldn't get any other way. And there was a point where you weren't just getting Hot Toys announcements, you were getting third party. And it was almost seemed like daily we were getting a third party announcement. That was last year and towards the start of this year, and then it just feels like things have dramatically slowed down there as well, to the point where it was almost like if Hot Toys wasn't going to do it, especially looking at Marvel figures, for example, if Hot Toys wasn't going to do it, there was going to be a third party company that was going to do it, right? Ideally, namely Toys Era, maybe sometimes So Toys, although So is doing their own thing at this point. But things have slowed down. Toys Era is desperately trying to catch up. I did ask a question about the not the dark side from the Justice League, the Snyder cut, but the uh, Jesus, the main villain, right? The Steppenwolf, the Steppenwolf redesign, right? We Toys Era had put up a pre-order about 2 years ago at this point for the Snyder version of Steppenwolf, and it still hasn't released. Now, if you listen to some of the distributors at this point, they're saying that Twizzlers is trying to catch up, so hopefully we'll see them by the end of this year, early next year. But it's a pretty significant delay, and that's not the only one that Twizzlers has up, right? They've also have the Ellie from The Last of Us. They released a Joel, which was a great figure. I thought that was really a step up for them in terms of the sculpt and whatnot. But we were supposed to see the Ellie come kind of in tandem, and it's been radio silence, right? So Toys R Us kind of gone a little silent. Um, Toys Battalion, Toys Battalion has been issuing some Power Rangers figures at this point, and we're gonna get into that because I think it's interesting that So Toys also, um, So Toys we can always depend on doing some very unique figures. They've got the Blade, they've got the Deathstroke from DC coming out, um, but lately they've been veering more into, I don't wanna say the safe category, but they've been doing a lot of these Power Rangers. So, um, you know, from an economy of I don't wanna say economy of scale because they're all limited to, like, 300 pieces, um, but it's almost like you're taking the same figure and changing up a couple of things, the helmet, maybe the color of the suit. They're very basic releases, and it seems like So is leaning very heavily into that. Similar with Toys Battalion, like, they're doing all the Power Rangers from the movie, that came out a while ago. So it's just an interesting tale of what's going on, and it's not just affecting third party, right? I'm a big Damn Toys fan, and obviously they canceled one of their Gangster's Kingdom figures, um, and it's been a little interesting with them as well. Usually, you could see some military releases coming from them, some announcements. It's been pretty radio silent. They did release some statues, and I think they are releasing some one-off artistic pieces. Again, it's a change. Damn Toys has always been like that, but it's a little bit of a change from the norm. Um, so it's just curious to me again, and I ask you guys the question: what do you guys think is going on with this scale world? Obviously, there's major concerns when it comes to the economy, right? So I'm sure that's playing a role. Um, I'm sure that when you look at the economy too, as collectors, one of the things that we're always noticing is that the cost of things continues to increase, right? Obviously, the cost of our daily life, products, groceries, gas, that's always something that we're always on the lookout for. And I wonder if, with the increased prices of other people entering the market, let's talk about Inart, right? Which at J&D, although J&D I would say is a smaller part of this, but you've got Inart coming in, doing what they did, which pushed the prices up a little bit because look, Hot Toys is doing their artisan lines, and you could see their prices creeping up. Sideshow's releasing their Beetlejuice, their Lost Boys figure, David, right? And they crossed that 300 threshold, and they've got that Scum and Villainy line now from Star Wars. Everything's starting to go up in cost, and as collectors with budgets, right, it's like, how much can we give to that and then still give to these third-party companies? Because even third parties starting to increase, right? We used to be able to get figures sub 200, and now I'm seeing them broach that 200 line. They're still low 200s, but it's still a lot of money to ask from collectors, right? So just an interesting observation, and I pose the question to anybody who watches this, even if it's only a few of you, I do appreciate it, but anybody who's watching, what your thoughts are regarding this. If we're seeing kind of a realignment in the 6 scale world, obviously Hot Toys remains the powerhouse they are, but even let's be honest, Inart made a social media splash when they came out, right, with what they were doing. The Imposter Joker just got released, the Artisan, and I think the comparison between head sculpts, between the Artisan and the Inart, Rooted, I personally think, not having either in hand, but just looking at the pictures, it looks like the Hot Toys one might be better. And look, I don't want this to turn into a Hot Toys versus Inart thing, but, um, Inart's going through some things, I think, right now because obviously people are really upset about the batch system and the way they're delivering product at this point. Um, I'm waiting for my first Inart product, which is their Harry Potter, um, which I'm sure I'm gonna be waiting for a while for that one. And I gotta be honest, the situation that happened with the Joaquin Phoenix Joker, where Hot Toys came out with a much cheaper, decent option, when in our had been doing the rounds saying, "Oh, we're capped at 1,000, it's gotta be 1,000 plus." Um, I'm sure all of that kind of that didn't help. So, InArt's gone a little radio silent. J&D launched the Harry Potter figures, and so that was more of a I'm surprised that Works is still alive considering the price point they were at. Um, so we'll see what they do. Now, InArt is gonna be at, Winter Festival in Shanghai in early October, so we'll see what, prototypes they showcase there. It'll be interesting. I think they mentioned Matrix and the like, but I really think they need to figure out their distribution model before, because I think they're even seeing some of their bigger supporters on social media turn on them. So let's see what is happening. But it just again, the story here or the feeling that I'm getting, especially in this, going into Q4 2024, things have slowed down pretty dramatically. And besides Hot Toys, you know, from just the volume, capacity that they have, everybody else is kind of tapered down, and we're getting one figure here and there, right? So, curious to hear what your thoughts are, or maybe I'm just speaking maybe it's a big nothing, burger at this point. But look, we're here to talk about some releases, right? So, um, what are we gonna talk about first? Because we're gonna go back ways, but let's start with today's big announcement, or yesterday's by the time you guys watch this, which is the Deluxe Batman, right, from, Batman Returns. We saw this figure teased at, one of the conventions. I do forget which one it was, but we did see this figure teased. Um, Now we're getting 2 versions, so I'm gonna focus on the Deluxe. Um, this is part of the 35 years, or sorry, 85 years of Batman, and we'll get into the other 2 releases that came from that, but look, we saw the Batman Returns 2.0. We knew it was coming at this point, so it's nice to see it. It is nice to see this Deluxe with this head sculpt because we're gonna take a closer look at that. This head sculpt continues that trend that Hot Toys had with hyper realistic, um, looking detail, and not only that, but I think the likeness to Mike Keaton is, like, yeah, it's perfect. Um, Interesting that they're giving us that messed up cowl from the end of the movie. I haven't watched that one in a while, so I don't remember if he's a little bloodied up, but it's interesting, right? And it's a great sculpt at this point. Now they are showing him with the Hot Toys '89 Batmobile. I don't think this is teasing that it's coming, right? I could be wrong. They might label this Batman Returns, right? Hot Toys has been known to do that, but yeah, I don't think that's coming at this point. I think that's just posing it up against what's been released. But this sculpt is really a highlight, and this begs the question, though. For me to have a Batman without the cowl is to me that's not as appealing. But when you have a sculpt as good as this, you kind of want to showcase it. And I have to applaud Hopkins because I feel like from the moment I used to say when they did the rolling eye system, we would oftentimes get something that really hurt the sculpt. And lately, they've really mastered the rolling eye system. I love this initial cape from the movie too. I'm not sure about the arms. I don't recall him holding the cape like this. I don't think he is, right? I think he's just they posed him up with the arms like that. I could be wrong. Suit looks very rubberized at that point. It looks good. I like the cape. I like this glider setup that he has. Um, they're not showing him in the most dynamic of poses, so I'm wondering if that means, again, we're getting a slightly restricted look, which is fine for me. Um, I have the original '89, which fortunately for me is still in pretty decent shape, hasn't started deteriorating or flaking. But I passed on the returns at the time, so I'm definitely gonna pick up this 2.0. Usually I'm a big sucker for the deluxes with the dioramas. This diorama is okay, right? I'm not gonna say it's the worst, but it's definitely not the highlight when we've seen some of the other dioramas from Hot Toys. I do like the Batarang with the computer. Again, the sculpt, the likeness there is just it's phenomenal. Um, this look is just throwing me a little bit with the kind of flexing arms. I don't remember that that's the way it goes during the movie, but it's pretty cool displayed out. I think just it's gonna take up a lot of your uh, retail space in the display. So, it looks good, interchangeable faceplates again. Um, the diorama is just a rooftop, and you can change the, uh, the gargoyle to the Max Shrek symbol. People have been saying this means and look, including me, I have a feeling that Hot Toys is gonna drop a Cat. Um, and I don't wanna get into the Jasmine conversation. Again, I'll reserve that for the 30th when they post that up for pre-order on 1/6 kit. And then, we'll see what there is to discuss, but, um, people some people are thinking this is a tease of a Catwoman. I think it's very much a tease of Batman Returns with the Max Shrek symbol, but I think that's pretty much where I would limit it. Um, doesn't mean that I don't think Hot Toys is gonna make a Catwoman because I think they are. Um, and look, we've seen what Hot Toys did with the Joaquin Phoenix Joker, so I wouldn't put it past them to wait until this other Catwoman launches, see what's there, and then either deliver, another product that's cheaper, or they might not do it, but I just have a feeling that it's coming at this point. Overall, I think Deluxe is great. It's nice that you are getting that keep with the standard, and then as far as the Deluxe, what you're getting is you're getting that display base, and you're getting the cowl and masthead. Um, for me, I'm gonna get the Deluxe. Again, it's just a question of what am I gonna do with these sets, and it almost feels like if I don't use it, this would be the opportunity to get back a Bruce Wayne, and Mars Toys had done that Bruce Wayne figure, so I'm also curious if there's an opportunity to pick that up if you use this particular sculpt with that, because I think that would be an interesting, display option, but, definitely very cool when it comes to the announcements. Now keeping along with the 85th anniversary of Batman, we did have these other ones that came out on Monday. And look, let's start with the reality here, which is they're a little wacky. I'm not gonna lie, right? They're definitely a little bizarre. They're just a repaint of their Arkham Knight Batman right? The, Batman Beyond Red and Black version. The only thing is that for Batman Beyond, when you think of that, you think red and black, right? You don't think gold and usually I'm not opposed to this color combination because gold and black goes well. Case in point, that Iron Man special edition figure that got released, which looks fantastic. Um, here I'm not gonna say it looks terrible because it doesn't, right? There's still a lot of detail work with the panels. I think the detail work looks great, right? The undersuit looks flexible, which is something that sometimes these Batman figures don't have. I like the accessories, the weapons, gear, the open, wings. Um, it's just not something that immediately screams Batman to me. If some of you remember when Batman Returns came out, Kenner, I think, was doing the figures for that line, and Kenner had and I remember because I got that figure, I don't remember why I wanted it, but there was, like, an Arctic Blast Batman that had, he was all gold and black, and he came with, they had, like, a scuba Batman, they had a ton of different versions of Batman that were not screen accurate, and I remember getting it, and when I saw this, it immediately reminded me of that old suited Kenner figure. Not the quality, right? Obviously, the detail here is much, much, more impressive than anything in Kenner. It's just the color of the paint apps. Um, look, it's fine. I thought if they hadn't released the Batman Returns figure, I thought this was a little bit of a weak showing for the 85th anniversary. I'm not gonna lie. I think this was, as an exclusive, fine, but it's just a repaint, and I don't know that a lot of people were asking for this or a lot of people were interested in this. Um, I think when you look at Iron Man figures obviously sell. There's definitely an appeal there. Um, Batman figures sell too, I'm not saying they don't, but this particular variant, not sure. And look, it's still up for order on, Sideshow, so I don't know if that'll last another day. This, I think, is limited to 2,000 pieces, so, um, I'm sure it'll sell out, but there doesn't seem to be that rush of interest to this one. So, okay, look, I'm not gonna knock the details, just for me, not something that's super appealing. The other announcement, though, and this is one that I was surprised about, because this one was a good one, I thought at least. It's still a replay of, a figure that was previously released, right? We got the black, and gold armored, Batgirl. Now they're releasing a purple version of her. This is very reminiscent of what we saw in that old '66 show, right, with the purple and gold. So there's definitely a nostalgia factor there, and, you know, just the color, the purple, I'm not gonna lie, it actually pops, right, with the gold. It's something that's gonna look kind of interesting in a display. For me, this is another path just because I don't have any of the video game figures from um, this series, so I'm not gonna start now because then I'd have to start back to, like, Jumping Nightmare. She looks fine. I think she's basically identical to the previous release. Again, you're just getting a different paint, right? And again, 2000, limited to 2000, still available on Sideshow. So the demand wasn't as much as some of these other exclusives we've seen from Star Wars or Marvel at this point. Not saying that it's a bad figure because I think the color combination here really pops, and there's a lot that looks great here, right? Detail work on the armored suit, the armor plating, right? The facial expressions. This one would be the only tempting one of the two. But again, I've been staying away from the video game line, so I'm not sure that this is for me. Uh, and looking back at this one and the gold plated Batman Beyond Batman, it just feels like that was a weak effort from Hot Toys. I'm not gonna lie. I would have been more impressed if they had released the Nightwing that they teased a long time ago from the series, and they did have that Batman XE suit from the, downloadable content, and if you had done, Mr. Freeze to go along with that, right? I get it, right? These are exclusives, it's a quick cash grab, it is, right? I love Hot Toys, so, if you think I'm wrong, let me know, but, um, they're fine, right? But they're not as impressive as some of the other releases. I definitely think the highlight is something like the Batman Returns 2.0, which just looks fantastic and well done. So we're not done with Hot Toys though, because again, I missed out, or I decided to wait a while to discuss these. Um, but let's see. Let's talk about this one first because this was pretty exciting for me. Um, so they announced the T800DX battle, and there is a picture floating around from someone who's indicating that they are working on a um, regular Arnold sculpt. So it could be an indication that we're going to get a 2.0 of the regular version. Now, look, just in this first picture, detail is phenomenal. I have, which one do I have? I have the original MMS T2 Terminator, the one that just came with the box with the shotgun, a paper box with the fake roses. Um, I did. This was in the time when I was I don't wanna say more budget conscious, but where I just didn't feel the need to upgrade to this version, right? They had the MMS, and they did the DX that included the minigun, and the pack with the ammo. That was always the look I wanted, and of course, what I ended up doing for that one was I kept my MMS and I just went on eBay and bought the pieces. So I never got a DX, but I basically got components to create the look that I wanted. So I got the rocket launcher so he could have that on his shoulder. I got the minigun with the bag, and the hands so that he has gloved hands to hold that. So still a figure that I love, right? And I think still looks amazing. But I never got a battle damage. So for me, this is another one that's a definite order, and it's great to see Hot Toys go back into these classic lines. I'm not saying I don't know. Some people might say it's a response to something because there are rumors that InArt is going to be doing some Terminator, but this looks great, right? This is an awesome looking sculpt, right? I love that you're getting two different battle damage head sculpts. Um, it looks like Arnold. The detail work is there. The base, I'm a sucker for diorama bases. I like the light up feature. I like that it's USB because that red light really does something. And then all the pieces that you're getting, right? The rifle, the rocket launcher, right? The pistol. And then there you do get the big gas canister uh, gun. I think do they have it here? Here you get it. So I like the display options that you get. There's a lot to like here. Um, and not just with the weaponry, but also, right, you can replace the arm, you can change the sculpt. You can get a lot of those final battle, uh, looks from him. I think this turned out great. Does this give me hope for more classic releases from Hot Toys? Absolutely, right? I think we continue to hope, that we're gonna get some more from the line. Um, for me, this is definitely an order. I would love to get another, standard Terminator, just with the upgrades that Hot Toys is capable of. Look, the clothing is all leather, real leather, so you don't have to worry about the flaking. That's awesome. The arsenal of weapons he gets, again, just missing that minigun, but by this point, he's not using it. Um, the different display options. It's really like this reminds me a lot of what a DX used to be, right, with all the components that you get. I mean, back in the day, we even got a second, full second Luke Skywalker. So there was a lot that Hot Toys used to do for us. Um, what do I think this means for the future? It just shows you Hot Toys are never out, right? You think they're not going to touch a license again, and then here they are with new team. So, um, what does that mean for other licenses? Obviously, they have the license at this point. Um, I don't know if that's going to happen. We know they teased an Ellen Ripley with the power loader. I have that original power loader. Um, the loader itself is fine. The figure extremely good, and it just doesn't look like her. Scale and proportions are off. Doesn't look like Ripley. Um, Hot Toys teased that a while ago. Doesn't they never launched it? Doesn't mean they won't. And when you see stuff like this, a DX, you think could they do an Ellen Ripley from Aliens artisan with a power loader? Maybe. I think they'd have to see if the numbers are there. Now that's just me being selfish too, because I'd love to go back and get some of those figures. I'd like them to revisit the Colonial Marines and do some of those as well. From Terminator, the one figure that nobody has redone, maybe I see some customs around. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, if any third party company's done it. Kyle Reese. That was one of their, I think it was their either their first or their second. It might have been the MMS '01. Was a Kyle Reese. So Hot Toys did that figure from the original Terminator in the future battle gear, right? With the weapons and everything. Nobody's ever remade it. And I think if there's a figure that I would love to get a 2.0 of, it would be Kyle Reese. Now, is there a demand for him? Questionable, right? I think Arnold is an icon at this point, so it makes sense to do his T800. I'd love to get some of those other figures again, but the other figure that I'd be interested in seeing them do is a Dutch 2.0. I love the first Dutch. I'm not going to get rid of it, but I think from Predator that would be another home run, and not only that, but a battle damaged end battle, with the mud. Um, Not sure that that would be something Hot Toys would want to tackle, but they have teased that they're doing another Predator from the original movie. So if there was ever an opportunity to revisit, that might be it. So I think the point of this is, first of all, it's an awesome release. It's great to see Hot Toys not innovate, but up their game a little bit with the genuine leather, the goods, the multiple sculpts, to the quality that we've been seeing them doing lately. Uh, so I just hope this means that it leaves the door open for more, right? But definitely another great addition to any collection if you're a Terminator fan or an 80s and 90s movie fan. And yet we're not done. So let's see. Let's go over the other release that we didn't that I didn't talk about. I did talk about it on Fab's Figures, so if you guys are interested, we did talk about that too. So I'll link to his channel. He's got some great streams and he's been kind enough to have me on Tuesdays. But we did talk about this, but I did want to go into it a little bit more. Look, this is a great figure. Um, Another unexpected, and I like when Hot Toys does the unexpected. Uh, I like when they release these one-ups that nobody thinks they're gonna do, because I think it shows that Hot Toys is still willing to do something a little different. Even I blame them from time to time leaning too heavily on Star Wars, Marvel, and to a lesser extent DC, because they really don't do a lot of DC figures. and Marvel has taken a backseat this year. But we get Troopers, we get Iron Man figures, we get Spider-Man variants, um, and yes, sometimes that gets a little stale. So to see them do a figure like this um, from a movie that, for all intents and purposes, everything I've been hearing is that it's been good, right? A character that people grew up watching. I like that, right? It brings me back to a time when Hot Toys was basically touching um, on a lot of properties. The Mars Attacks. We were getting um, Jesus, what Pirates of the Caribbean. They were doing all sorts of movies and not just focus on the singular IP. So it's great to see them branch out and do something like this and surprise us from time to time. Now, I think this figure looks phenomenal. I know Sideshow has their own version of the original movie. This is based on the sequel, so obviously that's what he's aged up. Look, I've seen the preview pictures, the unboxings of the original from Sideshow. I don't think there's any competition between that and the Hot Toys version. So for me, it becomes a question of where does this fit in, right? And I've been thinking about it for a while. I still haven't pre-ordered him, but every day I feel like I'm inching closer to making the order because when else are we gonna get a Beetlejuice, a Michael Keaton, right? And Michael Keaton, I think this is like his month because he's getting his Batman Returns figure, right? Supposedly, um, his older Batman from Flash should be releasing at some point. And then you get, just to look at this sculpt, you get this wackiness with the eyes. The detail work here looks incredible. I'm curious how. I think this is just a secondary sculpt, but it's such a wacky looking release that goes along with the character that it's gonna be hard to pass on. Because again, these one-offs from Hot Toys, um, there's some that I still regret not getting. For example, they did the Ichabod Crane Johnny Depp figure from Sleepy Hollow. I'm always on the lookout for that one. So if anybody has a beat on one of those, let me know because I'd be very interested. And right, we got Leonidas from 300. We got Gaston from Prince of Persia. Um, you got the Brad Pitt character from Inglourious Bastards. Right, we've gotten some one-offs. Perseus from Clash of the Titans. Um, Tonto from Johnny Depp. I forget which movie that was, but Hot Toys used to do this, right? So this is great to me. This shows that they still have that sense of interesting of flair, let's say, to do these licenses that we might think are not beneath them, but they might not touch. So it's always a surprise when we get these, and I always applaud that because even if you're not going to get these, you have to appreciate that. You know what? For all the Iron Man figures are doing, for all the Spider-Man, for all the Troopers, we're still getting some of these, right? And I'm sure the ability to make money off of those other figures and re-releases and what we might consider a little bit boring is what allows them to do so. So great looking figure. Um, Hot Toys, I think, is just really um, firing on all cylinders at this point. They really are. Release release wise, announcement wise, right? It continues to be pretty impressive. Um, and now, when it comes to talking releases, there have been a couple, but one of the ones that I did want to touch on because I'm getting it, and I thought it was a pretty impressive release overall, was this Obi-Wan Kenobi. We've been waiting for him for a while. He's gotten delayed nonstop, and the hope was always that Hot Toys was going to fix the sculpt, and they did. Right? They announced that they were fixing the sculpt. It looks great. Right? This looks like the Obi-Wan Kenobi we wanted. So I'm extremely happy that I pre-ordered him. The work that Hot Toys is doing on these sculpts is amazing, right? They don't always get it perfect, right? There are some figures that even I agree the likeness is a little bit off. This is a figure that no way. This hits on all cylinders. And Hot Toys has been doing this. Um, we saw it with the Mantis, and I thought the Mantis was actually a really good sculpt until I saw the updates that Hot Toys had made for her, and it really left you thinking, "Wow, this is pretty impressive." Even the Supergirl, they haven't officially announced the picture, so I'm sure when the Supergirl figure drops from the Flash, we're gonna see the improved head sculpt because we all complain about that head sculpt. and then we have seen her subsequently in shows where it does seem like they improve the sculpt dramatically. So it's nice to see Hot Toys listen. Look, I know that there's a lot of complaint about Hot Toys not engaging directly with the community, but I think the fact that they're improving these sculpts is an indicator that they may not engage, but they're listening and they're aware of what's going on. So this is a really good looking figure. I'm extremely excited to get him in hand, even as a non Star Wars collector. Right, um, this is a great figure to own, and I like the show, so it made sense for me. Although, gotta be honest, I think with how things are going, um, I'm gonna slow down a little bit with Star Wars. I think it's gonna be back to Marvel and some of these other one-offs, at least for the time being. And speaking of one-offs, right, where would we be if we don't talk about non-Hot Toys releases? Um, so which one am I gonna talk about first? Let's talk about Exo 6. We'll give some love to Star I am a big Star Trek fan. Um, yeah, you can be both a Star Trek and a Star Wars fan. Exo 6 is an interesting company. They've been releasing a lot of secondary characters, and I know there's been complaints too in the community about the method of their release. People want the Wrath of Khan figure. I want the Wrath of Khan figure, right? I want Captain Spock. I want Admiral Kirk from that movie. I want Bones. And what are we getting? We're getting Savick. Rumor is we're gonna get the Wrath of Khan Captain's chair, which I will get because I think that's gonna make for an awesome display piece. Um, but look, there's some method to their madness in terms of how they're releasing figures. I think the understanding is if we release all the major characters, right, there's gonna be no ability or market to go back and get some of these secondary or tertiary characters, right, that people might not otherwise get. So recent release right now is the Dr. Beverly Crusher. I think she looks good. I think, and look, with Exo 6, one thing that I've noticed pretty significantly is most of the time, the final product is actually better than the prototype pictures. And that's contrary to what we see normally in figures, which is where we see this amazing prototype and then we see a downgrade of sorts. So I do appreciate that from Exo 6. I do have to also say the CEO, right, of Exo 6, he had a picture up on his website. It was, I think it was their 7 of 9 figure, and she looked amazing. And he said, "This is what a more custom paint job would take." And he basically said he'd have to charge more, and the market for these figures wouldn't sustain that level of work. So it was an interesting insight into what they're doing, and kind of explains maybe why you're getting some of the less than ideal um, sculpts that we're getting and less than ideal paint jobs. Um, it's up to you to accept that, right? For me, I don't think there's ever going to be another line of these figures in particular. So um, I'm willing to bite the bullet, and the cost is decent enough where I'm comfortable where I'm like for what I'm paying, this is okay enough, right? This is acceptable. Not saying they're cheap, but they're cheaper than Hot Toys, they're cheaper than InArt, they're cheaper than almost other things in the market at this point. So um, I'm not going to compare them necessarily, and they are improving. Now for Beverly Crusher, look, I think she's a critical character to the lore. I like that you're getting some of this gear right. Exo 6 excels at getting the gear right and the uniforms. That's kind of their bread and butter. It's the sculpts where they suffer a little bit. Unless you're doing the Strange New Worlds line, which surprisingly that those two, the Spock and the Pike, pretty incredible work there. So I don't know if that team is working exclusively on that line, but if it were me, I'd have that team work on everything because they're doing great work. Really, those sculpts I would hold on par with some of the Hot Toys sculpts because they're that good. Crusher, she looks okay. I don't think I'm gonna get this one. Just with everything coming out again, we're talking about being selective. I wish I could get them all, and that's fine, right? There's gonna be a lot of other figures. I at this point am almost waiting for the card season 3 version of all these characters. Um, Again, I love that season. I thought it was a great cap to the show, and not just to Picard, but to the original crew from the Next Generation. So I'd love to get those figures, and hopefully they'll be made. But Exo 6 still showing a lot of signs of life, and they are teasing another pre-order this week. Um, um, so yeah, there's more. There's more. Again, I waited maybe a little too long. Um, so let's talk about one that I'm very excited to get, and it's kind of I've held off on it a little bit, even though I've covered a lot of the Resident Evil figures. But we're getting a new Liam from, and I don't know this company, but if you know Fabs from Fabs Figures, he mentioned that he's gotten these before, and that they're actually really amazing, really solid releases. Price point for this is a little higher, right? I think he's at about 240 shipped, so definitely above your typical third party. He looks good. I know it's just a guy in jeans and a flag, a vest, and a rifle. But again, it's Leon Kennedy, and it's probably, to be honest, one of the best looking prototype Leon Kennedys that I think we've seen in a while. Um, so for me, I resisted getting these. I was always waiting for a newer version from Resident Evil 4 with the leather jacket. Um, and surprisingly, I think there's only been one release of it so far. So I'll be curious to see how if anybody else does one. But for this one, I think this is from Resident Evil 5. Um, was it 5? No, 5 is the one that is it Resident Evil 6? So I think, I'd definitely be interested in getting this one. Um, I am probably gonna get this one, and I actually pre-ordered the, one of the, new ObiWans of the 20 third-party releases. Again, relatively simple figure, right? It's not anything that's gonna make or break the collection, right? You're gonna see him. He could be a mercenary for all you know, right? He could stand in with a military collection. But since I do have those Resident Evil 4 figures, I think he's gonna be a great companion figure to go along with those. And look, the accessories look great, the detail on the weapons. It's very much a military line figure. So very, very cool that we're getting that. And hopefully, listen, there seems to be a lot of interest in Resident Evil. So they continue to release some of these guys. Um, Now let's talk about this guy. So we talk about licenses that nobody else is gonna pick up, right? And how, um, Hot Toys isn't gonna do it, there's not a demand. So, They Live. Love this movie. John Carpenter's They Live, right? If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it. Take the effects. I think for their time, the effects were awesome. Um, the story, as simple as it is, ingenious, right? It's basically about subliminal messages and an alien invasion of Earth by where basically everything, whether it's money, newspapers, you know how there was always that craze about subliminal messages in your ad. Well, this is real, and there are aliens that live amongst us, right, manipulating everything. So this is the character of Nada, um, who is the main character. Um, great movie again, punctuated by probably one of the longest fistfights that, I think is in a movie. Um, I would normally have told you I was gonna jump on this, release, right, and try to get this figure, because again, as an '80s movies fan, this is another one that's extremely memorable, right? This scene, with the bubble gum is from he goes into the bank after basically realizing what's going on and causes some, mayhem. The problem I have with this is it's Mondo. Now Mondo's been doing a lot of 6 scale figures from the cartoon, from Batman the Animated Series, X-Men the Animated Series, right, from, Masters of the Universe, He-Man. So they've been getting into a lot of those animated, things, giving us figures that feel very, very Twitch, right? And that's been their bread and butter. They've been doing great at it. Those figures look great. They've been extremely tempting even. And then they started getting these licenses, right? They got the Thing, and they gave us the Kurt Russell character from the Thing. A lot of people jumped on that, or a few people jumped on it at least. And let's just say that I resisted that being the first realistic looking character. I kind of held back a little bit, and I'm glad I did because the pictures um, did not do that figure justice. The clothing looks out of scale. The sculpt looks very soft, right? So when you look at this character, the sculpt looks pretty decent. The body looks a little oversized, but a little almost comical because he's not that. I don't remember him being this having these massive like arms in the movie. Um, Even the clothes here, right? The belt, the shirt, it lacks the finesse that we've seen from some of these other companies. The weapons look fine, right? I'm not gonna sit here and tell you they look horrible. They look okay. The glasses, decent. Um, it's just decent, and that's the problem. Well, I'd love to have this, seeing what their previous releases were. Um, Even the eyes, look, the paint app on the eyes. I'm a stickler for that when it comes to these figures. When you look at Hot Toys, when you look at Damn Toys, when you look at some of the best companies, even Expo 6 is doing it now, or at least they've successfully done that in the past couple of go-arounds. Um, there's just something impressive about having these lifelike eyes that really bring these figures to life and give you the illusion of a really reduced character in 6 scale format. So while I love the movie, trust me, I've been thinking about getting him, but there's so much else going in, and just the quality of that Mondo first release leaves a lot to be desired in my eyes. If you do own that figure, that Thing figure, let me know if I'm wrong, because if I'm wrong, then and the figure looks better than the pictures, then maybe I'll jump onto this. But otherwise, I think this is one that, for the price point, I'd probably be disappointed in when I got him, which is a shame because it brings to mind that question: who else is going to make this figure? Third party, like I said at the start of the video, third parties kind of, I don't want to say they're tapping out, but they're going through some things as well, it seems like. So nobody else is going to make this figure. So if I wanted this character in the collection, this might be the only chance. But then what's more worth it? Is it worth it taking a chance on a figure that might be subpar that I might be disappointed in? Or is it more important to have the character in the collection along with the other 80s figures and just be happy that I got him? So that's where my collecting mindset is with this guy. I love that somebody's doing him. I wish Mondo had knocked the Kurt Russell Thing figure out of the park, because then it would have been an easy conversation to have. As it stands, a little questionable what's next. Um, Now let's see what else. Are we almost done? Yeah, we're almost done. These are interesting from Asmus. Asmus has been doing these zombie figures. I laughed when I saw this, right? So you got New York and Boston in series 2024. Rodriguez, A-Rod, probably right. Well, you got the New York. It's not the New York Yankee symbol, right? Slightly different, but it's the New York Yankee away jersey, right? Um, Look, it looks pretty cool for what it is. Um, Tempting to a degree. I don't know that I have any horror figures that this would go well with. But if you do have any Walking Dead figures and you're looking to add some zombies to the collection, this might not be a bad idea. And then, of course, you get Ramirez. So guessing, Manny Ramirez over here, or um, that's who they're at least kind of uh, alluding to. Again, right, the B is not the Boston Red Sox, but the jersey's pretty much the Boston Red Sox jersey. So just a very interesting release. Asmus is they had the Lord of the Rings line for a while. Um, you see them do, they're definitely leaning heavily into this zombie series at this point, and they're pretty interesting. I don't know that anybody else is going to do something like this. And look, this is one of the things that I appreciate about these companies, and we talk about that in terms of competition. But what you start seeing is every 6 scale company starts finding their own little niche, right? Their own little corner. Damn Toys, military, and some online. Asmus was doing Lord of the Rings. Now they're doing this Bitten series. Um, Mondo is doing its things, right? Exo 6 is doing Star Trek. Um, and that's the thing we always talk about within art. It's like, when you've got a company like Hot Toys that's doing their own things, when you've got all these other companies doing this, stand apart, right? Do your own thing at that point. Don't just retread the beaten path at this point and give us more of those characters, because give us something original, because stuff like this becomes interesting to me. I think. So again, I just wanted to flag that because it was pretty interesting. And then the last one before we go and before you guys get super sick and tired of me, um, hold on, is from Art Figures. Um, I like Art Figures. They're another third party company that doesn't do much. Um, they do like a figure a year at this point. And I remember when they started, they were typical third party, right? Not the most impressive sculpts. Um, decent setups, but they would do a couple of things here and there. But they've gotten dramatically better, right? They even released that Riddick, which I'm still tempted to get. Budget allowing, I might try to pick them up at some point. I might try to see if they ever put them on sale. But they are doing an Edward Scissorhands 2.0 because I think they released one. Rooted hair. Look, this is the future. I think we're looking at it, right? Inart kind of started it. Hot Toys picked up on it with the Artisan. Um, is the likeness there? I think it's there. I think it's definitely pretty impressive. I think the hair looks pretty amazing. Is this how it's gonna look out of the box? Art Figures, I've had a pretty good run with them, and they've pretty much delivered on almost every release that I've gotten from them. So, look, I'm not this one is I wasn't as crazy about Edward Scissorhands as a lot of people were. I know it's a very popular movie. I do think this portrait, the sculpt looks pretty awesome, and the detail on the suit as well. I don't know if the suit is actual leather, to be honest. Um, I do think this is wool-rooted hair, based on the description. So, just goes to show you again where the trend is going. Even third-party companies are jumping into the wool-rooted hair. We saw Soldier Story do, I think it was a Dev Brew, guy special edition with a wool-rooted beard. So, at this point, look, if you wanna say InArt did a couple of things, InArt definitely started a few interesting, intriguing trends in the market. Um, the wool-rooted hair, and unfortunately, I will say, unfortunately, the price. And I think what InArt did do for the market was they showed that there were people were willing to pay more, including me, right? And I think that's why we're seeing prices start to go up because other companies are seeing that and saying, "Why not, right? Let's get our piece of the pie at this point." So look, that was I know it's a lot of catch up, so hopefully if you're not interested in starting these, we can skip around. But there's life in the six skill world. I'm not saying that there's not, but it was a little slow going for a bit. So a lot of great releases. I think the Batman Returns to me is probably the top along with the T800 Battle Damage. Those two are amazing. Um, I do think that hopefully this isn't it for Batman the 85th anniversary because I think there's such a broad opportunity. If they were gonna drop any other figures too, they teased the '97 Batman and Robin figures. I myself, not a movie that I'm keen on, but this would be a great opportunity to release those as well with this anniversary. That Nightwing to Arkham Knight, that would have been a great figure to release as well. And look, not to start any fight because I got no skin in the game at this point. But if they wanted to release a Catwoman or a Penguin, now would be the time to tease it. It would have been perfect unless they're playing another game, which they might be, which is fine. I still think those are but again, lots of great figures. Third party, some little signs of life, but again, super slow, right? So keeps doing those multiple announcements where it's like, here are your 5 Red Rangers, which are basically the same figure, just with slightly different, helmets. I'm not a Power Rangers fan, so I can't really tell you, what the major differences are, but that's just what I've been noticing. So interesting time, I think, in the 6 market. Do I think that things are gonna stay this way? I don't. I think we're gonna see a flurry of releases. Obviously, Obi-Wan is coming. Mine just got delayed from Sideshow again. My She-Hulk finally shipped after, like, months of delays, even though she's been released overseas for a while. Um, Grand Admiral Thrawn shipped. That one came in early because he released it. I think I got the charge within a month. So really curious how things are going around here. So She-Hulk is coming. Grand Admiral Thrawn is coming. Next week, yeah, I'll have my Mantis review up, and I'll have the Mark 6 review up, hopefully with the gantry. So still stuff coming up. And then we'll just see what gets announced, right? I think on September 30th, there seems to be a lot of um, attention being put to Jazz Inc. now with that cat within that Michelle Pfeiffer. So we'll see what I didn't cover it today just because there's a lot of other stuff going on, and I don't have we don't have the full information at this point. So once it goes live, I think there'll be more to discuss to look at actually what the accessories are and what the price points are. Because the price point I think is going to be um, telling, and I'm thinking it's going to be pretty expensive. Yeah, the basic could be around 300, but that's 300 shipped directly from Jazz Inc. And if you're in the States, you can't buy it directly from Jazz Inc. So I'd say be prepared for a pretty steep price on those or the two packs. So we'll talk about that on the 30th. But for now, I think we covered a lot. So let me know your thoughts on these. I have a couple questions too. If you guys have any insights into some of those products, I'm very curious to hear what you have to say. And look, we'll touch base on the next video. And thanks for watching and joining me for a little bit for those of you that decide to stick around for even a segment of this. So thanks again, and like, comment, and subscribe if you're interested, and we'll touch base on the next.